The manager slammed a tray onto the table so hard that glasses rattled across the entire restaurant. Every customer turned. Every employee froze. And then his finger shot toward the quiet waitress standing beside the kitchen doors. "You are finished, Clara," he shouted. "Get out of my restaurant." The words hit her like a slap. For a moment, nobody moved. Clara stood there holding a small order pad against her chest, while dozens of strangers stared at her. Humiliation burned through her body. The manager wasn't done. "You've been nothing but a problem since the day you got here," he barked. "Slow, useless, always making mistakes." Several customers exchanged uncomfortable looks. Because everyone knew he was lying. Clara was the hardest-working waitress in the building. She was always the first to arrive. Always the last to leave. Always covering shifts when someone called in sick. But she never defended herself. Never argued. Never raised her voice. And that made her an easy target. The manager stepped closer. "I want your apron on my desk and your locker cleaned out in 5 minutes." The restaurant had gone completely silent. Clara lowered her eyes. Then she did something so small that nobody paid attention. She quietly removed the silver key hanging around her neck. She placed it on the service counter and walked away. No shouting. No crying. No argument. Just one small movement. The manager smirked. He thought he had won. What he didn't know was that the little silver key she had just left behind was about to destroy everything. Before we go any further, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support truly means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more powerful emotional stories that inspire, shock, and touch the heart. Make sure you stay with us until the very end, because this story has a twist you'll never forget. And if this story moves you in any way, share your thoughts in the comments below and send this video to someone who needs to hear it today. Now let's begin. Clara Bennett had worked at Maple Grove Restaurant for nearly 4 years. She wasn't loud. She wasn't popular. Most customers barely remembered her name. But they remembered how she made them feel. She remembered birthdays, favorite meals, special anniversaries. Customers often requested her section because she treated everyone with kindness. Yet despite everything she did, her manager, Rick Lawson, seemed determined to make her miserable. At first it had been little things. Criticizing her in front of coworkers. Changing schedules without warning. Blaming her for mistakes made by others. Over time, the behavior became worse. Much worse. That Friday night was supposed to be one of the busiest nights of the year. The restaurant was packed. Every table was full. People were waiting outside. The kitchen was overwhelmed. Employees were rushing everywhere. And Rick was in one of his moods. The kind everyone feared. The kind where somebody would become his target. Tonight, that target was Clara. "Table 12 is waiting," he snapped. "I already put the order in," Clara answered softly. "You expect me to believe that?" "Yes." Rick rolled his eyes dramatically. "Maybe if you moved faster for once." Clara swallowed her frustration. She turned away. A younger waitress named Emma hurried over. "You okay?" she whispered. Clara forced a smile. "I'm fine." "No, you're not." "I'll be okay." Emma looked worried. Everyone was worried. Because Rick had been acting strangely for weeks. More aggressive. More nervous. More desperate. Almost like he was hiding something. Nobody knew what. Then everything exploded. A customer at table 7 complained that his meal was incorrect. Before anyone could investigate what happened, Rick stormed across the dining room. His face was red with anger. He grabbed the plate from the table, marched directly toward Clara, and threw it onto the floor. The crash echoed through the restaurant. Customers gasped. Children jumped. The entire room froze. "You did this," he yelled. Clara stared at him. "I never served that table. Don't lie to me." "I didn't." "You are fired." The words came instantly, like he had been waiting for an excuse. The restaurant fell silent. Even the kitchen staff stopped moving. Then came the public humiliation. Rick insulted her, mocked her, accused her of incompetence, every sentence louder than the last. And through it all, Clara simply listened. When he finally finished, she removed the key from around her neck, placed it on the counter, and left. The front door closed behind her. A strange feeling settled over the restaurant. Relief for Rick. Concern for everyone else. 20 minutes later, the first problem appeared. A cook rushed into the dining room. "Rick." "What?" "We can't access inventory records." "What are you talking about?" "The system won't open." Rick frowned. "Call it." "They already tried." Another employee approached. "We can't unlock the storage room." "What?" "The key isn't working." Rick's irritation deepened. "Then use another key." "We don't have another key." His expression changed. "What do you mean you don't have another key?" The employee hesitated, then answered quietly. "Clara had it." Rick laughed. "So call her." Nobody moved. Nobody volunteered. Nobody even reached for a phone. Because everyone knew Clara wouldn't answer. Not tonight. An hour later, the situation became worse. Far worse. The inventory software remained inaccessible. Supply records vanished. Order histories disappeared. Vendor schedules couldn't be found. The kitchen began running out of ingredients. Customers started complaining. Wait times doubled, then tripled. The restaurant descended into chaos. Rick stormed through the building shouting at everyone. "Fix it. We're trying. Try harder." But Clara handled all of this. Rick froze. "What?" The assistant manager looked exhausted. She organized inventory. So, she managed supplier schedules. Rick's confidence weakened. So, she maintained backup records. The assistant manager stared directly at him. You never knew because she never bragged about it. A terrible realization began creeping across Rick's face. Clara hadn't just been a waitress. She had quietly become the person holding the restaurant together. Without her, systems were failing everywhere. And the night was only getting started. By 10 o'clock, angry customers were leaving. Refund requests flooded the front desk. Kitchen staff argued with servers. Deliveries scheduled for the next morning couldn't be confirmed. Nobody knew what to do. Rick's hands trembled as he dialed Clara's number. Straight to voicemail. He called again. No answer. Again. Nothing. For the first time all evening, fear appeared in his eyes. Meanwhile, Clara sat alone on a park bench across town. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. She ignored every call. Not because she wanted revenge. Not because she hated anyone. She was simply tired. 4 years of humiliation. 4 years of disrespect. 4 years of being invisible. She stared at the city lights. And for the first time in a long time, she felt free. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Emma. Clara hesitated, then answered. Hello? Clara, everything's falling apart. Clara sighed. I figured. You knew this would happen. No. Then why did you leave the key? There was silence. Finally, Clara spoke. Because it wasn't just a key. Emma frowned. What do you mean? It opened the archive room. The archive room. The room nobody cared about. Emma's eyes widened. The archive room. A small locked room in the basement. A room filled with records. Contracts. Financial statements. Inspection reports. Supplier agreements. Everything. The room Rick had never once entered. The room Clara managed quietly for years. The room containing secrets that could either save the restaurant or destroy it. Emma felt a chill run through her body. Clara. Yes. There's something else. What? Emma lowered her voice. People are looking through the records now. Clara sat upright. What records? The ones from the archive room. Her heart skipped. Why? Emma's voice shook. Because they found something. What? Silence. Then Emma whispered the words that would change everything. They found proof that Rick has been stealing from the restaurant. Clara froze. Across town, sirens echoed faintly in the distance. And inside Maple Grove Restaurant, several employees stared at financial documents spread across a table. The color had completely drained from Rick Lawson's face. Because the papers in front of them told a story he desperately wanted buried. And in just a few minutes, everyone in the restaurant would learn the truth. The documents spread across the table like evidence in a courtroom. Nobody spoke at first. Not because they didn't want to, but because the truth was too heavy to name out loud. Rick Lawson stood at the center of the chaos, staring at the papers with shaking eyes. His usual arrogance had evaporated, replaced by something fragile and panicked. No, he muttered, this isn't possible. One of the servers, Marcus, picked up a sheet with trembling hands. Rick, these are signed supplier invoices. So, Rick snapped too quickly. They're inflated, Marcus said slowly, by almost double in some cases. A second employee leaned in, scanning another page. And these transfers, they're going into an account that isn't listed in company records. Rick stepped forward and snatched the paper. It's a mistake, he barked, some accounting error. But his voice cracked at the end. Emma, still on the phone with Clara, whispered, they're saying it's not just one document, it's months of records. Clara closed her eyes on the other end. She didn't look surprised, only tired, because she had seen it all before. Rick turned violently toward the staff. Who even authorized you to go into the archive room? Silence. Then Marcus spoke again, quieter this time. The same key you told Clara to leave behind. Rick froze. That key. His eyes darted toward the counter where it had been placed earlier, like something insignificant. But now it felt like a detonator. Emma stepped forward, anger rising in her voice. She didn't just leave it, did she? Rick didn't answer. She gave us access, Emma continued, because she knew we'd eventually look. Rick slammed his fist on the table. Clara has nothing to do with this. But even as he said it, his authority was collapsing in real time. Because the evidence didn't lie. The numbers didn't argue. The signatures didn't defend him. And then came the worst part. A quiet voice from the back of the room. I think she knew for a long time. Everyone turned. It was the head cook. An older man who rarely spoke. She used to stay late, he said slowly. Not for cleaning, she was correcting records, reorganizing files, backing things up. Rick's face tightened. That's not her job. The cook shrugged. She said she didn't trust the system. A silence fell again, heavier this time. Emma finally spoke into the phone. Clara, did you know? Clara didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was calm. I suspected. Rick's name was said like a distant memory. I saw inconsistencies in supplier costs months ago, she continued. I asked questions, they were ignored. After that, I stopped asking. Emma's breath shook. So you just watched it happen? No, Clara said softly. I documented it. Back at the restaurant, Rick's world tilted. Documented, he repeated. Marcus nodded slowly, holding up another file. She backed up everything, every transaction, every change, every adjustment. Rick's throat went dry. That's illegal, he snapped instinctively. No, Emma said sharply. What's illegal is what you did. A new sound cut through the tension. Sirens, faint at first, then growing louder. Everyone looked toward the front windows. Red and blue lights flashed against the glass. Rick stepped back. No, 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 no. The doors swung open. 2 police officers entered first. Then a man in a tailored suit. The restaurant manager from corporate headquarters. The real owner's representative. His eyes scanned the room once, and immediately locked onto Rick. Mr. Lawson, the man said coldly, we've been trying to reach you for weeks. Rick tried to recover his composure. There's been a misunderstanding. The man raised a hand. We've already reviewed the archive data. Rick went silent. The room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were closing in. The corporate representative turned slightly. And we'd like to thank whoever restored access to those records. His eyes moved across the staff. No one has been able to open that archive system in over 2 years. Emma slowly turned toward Clara's voice, still on speaker. Clara, she whispered, what did you do? Clara exhaled. I fixed what no one else cared to fix. Rick suddenly laughed. A broken, desperate sound. She's just a waitress, he said loudly. She's nothing, she has no authority here. But even as he said it, nobody agreed. Nobody backed him up. Because they were all remembering the same thing. Clara wasn't just a waitress. She was the only reason the restaurant functioned. The corporate representative opened a folder. Mr. Lawson, he said, do you recognize these transactions? Rick's lips parted, but no sound came out. They traced directly to a secondary account under your authorization, the man continued, over the past 11 months. The room went still. Emma covered her mouth. Marcus stepped back in disbelief. The cook lowered his eyes. And Rick finally broke. It wasn't me, he whispered. But his voice was weak. Unconvincing. Even to himself. The officer stepped forward. Mr. Lawson, you're being placed under investigation for financial misconduct and fraud. Handcuffs clicked. That sound echoed louder than anything else that night. Rick was escorted toward the door, struggling weakly as everything he had built collapsed behind him. As he passed the counter, he looked at the silver key. Still sitting there. Still quiet. Still unchanged. And for the first time, he understood what it meant. It wasn't just a key. It was control. It was access. It was everything he thought he had taken for granted. And Clara had simply let go of it. Not out of anger, but because she no longer needed to hold his world together. Outside, the rain began to fall. Soft at first, then heavier. Rick was led into the police car, and the door closed. Inside the restaurant, silence returned. But it was different now. Not tense, not fearful, Empty. Emma slowly sank into a chair. He's really gone, she whispered. No one answered. Because they were all thinking the same thing. The restaurant didn't feel saved. It felt exposed. Like something fragile had finally cracked open. Emma finally pressed the phone again. Clara, what happens now? A long pause. Then Clara spoke. I think you decide what kind of place it becomes without him. Emma looked around at the broken system. The overwhelmed staff. The exposed corruption. And realized something unsettling. Rick leaving wasn't the end. It was the beginning of responsibility. Across town, Clara stood from the park bench. The rain touched her face gently. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply looked forward. Because for the first time in years, she wasn't cleaning up someone else's mess. Her phone buzzed one last time. A message from Emma. Will you come back? Clara stared at it for a long moment. Then she typed slowly. I didn't leave because I hated the place. She paused. I left because I stopped being invisible. Then she sent one final line. If I come back, it won't be as someone you can ignore. She turned off her phone and walked into the night. Behind her, Maple Grove restaurant was still alive. But it would never be the same again. Because sometimes the quietest person in the room isn't weak. They're just the only one who knows exactly when everything will fall apart.